Asbury Parker, part of America 250, lighting the way. Asbury Parker was born around 1830 in Cabell County, Virginia. This part of Virginia would become part of West Virginia in 1863. He was owned by a man named Richard Brown, and although slavery was very much evident in Cabell County, it had never become central to the economy or social structure. In 1830, when Asbury was born, there were 5,263 whites, 60 free blacks, and 561 slaves. When Asbury Parker was 13 years old, his first owner, Richard Brown, died. When the estate was settled, Asbury was sold to a new owner, and he moved to Lawrence County, Kentucky, on Sandy Row. In 1857, Asbury was sold once again. His new owner was Squire James Rouse from Greenup County, Kentucky. Asbury began working as a team driver at Clinton Furnace in what would become present-day Boyd County, Kentucky. The white workers there liked him. They often remarked that he was too smart to be a slave, and they told him about how to escape to Canada. Shortly after Asbury moved to Greenup County, Kentucky, President James Buchanan was elected in 1857. Buchanan was quoted as saying, "The object of my administration will be to destroy sectional party, North or South, and to restore harmony to the Union under a national and conservative government." It is one of these remarks that Asbury Parker heard and made him decide to run away. With a determined mind, Asbury decided to make his way to freedom. He would cross the Ohio River at Huntington, West Virginia, on April 1858. A friend would put him in a skiff, allowing him to cross the Ohio River and begin his journey to freedom. Once he crossed the Ohio River at Huntington, he landed near Proctorville. From Proctorville, he went to Ironton, and he arrived about 2 p.m. in the afternoon. In Ironton, he met Gabe Johnson, a well-known conductor on the Underground Railroad. Johnson then sent him to Perlina Pogue's home. Perlina was also a conductor on the Underground Railroad, and her house was a station and a safe place for the runaway slaves. Asbury would not only find a safe place to stay, he would also find family. Later, he would marry Perlina's daughter. Dan Holt and Nat Dalsbury guided Asbury on to his next stop on the Underground Railroad at Olive Furnace, which is pictured here. It was daylight when he arrived, but it had been dark when he started his journey. He stayed at the Cradoff's house. Cradoff was a black man and an Underground Railroad worker. While in the area of Olive Furnace, he saw his first telegraph wire. He feared it would tell the white people following him where he was going. He could not understand the technology that he was seeing for the first time. He was given the advice to hold his head up and act free, and then he could go out in daylight. At 2 a.m., he arrived at the Stewart settlement near Poke Patch in Lawrence County. After leaving Poke Patch, Asbury caught a train that took him to Hamden in Benton County, Ohio. This was the first time he saw a train in person. From Benton County, he would catch another train that would take him to his next stop in Columbus. This map shows the path taken by Asbury Parker on his way to Canada. After he left Benton County, he came to Columbus, Ohio. From Columbus, he went to Iberia, then to Galion, Ohio, then to Sandusky, Ohio. and finally to freedom in Canada. He landed in Canada at 11 p.m. on a Friday night. In Canada, he found numerous slaves that had fled from the same county he had left. He would live in Canada for 13 years in Windsor, just across from Detroit. In 1870, Asbury Parker had returned to Lawrence County, and in fact he was living in Ironton, next to his in-laws Henry and Perlina Pogue. In 1859, he had married Hannah Pogue. In 1870, Asbury was working as a day laborer to support his family. Hannah was keeping house. 2 children were listed in the household. Paulina, who had been born in Kentucky around 1855, was attending school. George, who was born around 1868 in Ohio, was at home. By the time the 1880 census was taken, the Parker household had shrunk to only Asbury and his wife, Hannah. Asbury was working at a furnace, while Hannah was still keeping house. Pictured here is Asbury Parker. The clothes he is wearing were the ones he used when he escaped to freedom. On the 30th of September, 1894, he was interviewed about his escape from slavery. He would later write letters about his experience as a slave and his trip to freedom. He and Hannah were still living on 8th Street in Ironton. In 1900, Asbury had found a new job working as a janitor in the courthouse. He and Hannah were living on Adams Street. According to the census, Hannah had had 3 children, but by the time the census was taken in 1900, all 3 of the children had passed. Pictured here is the Lawrence County Courthouse in Ironton. Asbury was appointed janitor of the courthouse. He actually succeeded Gabe Johnson, who had worked tirelessly on the Underground Railroad and had helped Asbury escape to freedom. In September 1903, Asbury Parker died at his home on 716 Adams Street at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night. His cause of death was listed as asthma. It was a condition he had suffered from a long time. He had worked as a janitor in the Lawrence County Courthouse in Ironton up until his death. He was 73 years old. His obituary would appear on page 1 of the Ironton Register. He was described as one of the most prominent colored residents of the city. His obituary discussed his years as a slave as well as his escape. His funeral services were held at the Centennial Lodge of Oddfellows, at which he was a veteran member. He was buried in Woodland Cemetery, Section 14, Lot 40. It was noted that there was no race prejudice strong enough to prevent a general regret at his passing. His wife Hannah survived him. Just 15 years after her husband's death, Hannah Pogue Parker passed away as well. On the 13th of December, 1918, she died in Ironton, Ohio. She was still residing at their home at 716 Adams Street. Her cause of death was listed as chronic intestinal nephritis. Unlike her husband, no obituary was written to mark her death. She was buried the 15th of December, 1918, in Woodland Cemetery, next to her husband. Her final resting place is marked with a tombstone stating her name was Anna Parker. In truth, her name was Hannah Pogue Parker.